I'm Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist, and here I share legal and entertainment news from a psychological perspective. So, I saw this video by Jaiden Animation, and I think she did a phenomenal job really visualizing and showing people what it's like to experience ADHD, especially getting a diagnosis at a later age. So, not being diagnosed at like 5 or 6, because some children are diagnosed very early. And in my experience, the people that are diagnosed early are normally the ones that have outward expressions of ADHD. So, a hyperactive impulsive, the ones that are like throwing chairs in class or just literally can't sit still, getting up every 5 minutes. And I think it's really important for teachers to understand this information and for people to understand, because sometimes they will think that a child is not trying hard enough or they're not doing enough. And so I also wanted to do this video to just kind of dispel some myths about ADHD as well. Peanut Butter, I saw your comments. Thank you so much. If y'all have questions, please let me know, specifically about ADHD. You mentioned talking about autism as well, and um, that is where because when a person gets diagnosed with ADHD specifically, but also if they're also on the autism spectrum, being able to navigate motherhood can just add an additional layer to everything. I've also linked some phenomenal channels down in the description. Mickey Atkins, I watched her video this morning on tips for ADHD, and I also linked how to ADHD and a few other videos that I found helpful. I follow, I think it's Psych Doc. I have her channel linked down below, but Dr. Sasha, I follow her. She's a psychiatrist and she has ADHD. And then she also just talks about tips for managing things that people might not understand or might not realize. And we are also going to add in pathological demand avoidance as well, because I think that would be helpful for us to talk about. All right. And Draco, thank you for adding that reminder to sparkle and shine. And so glad we're all here. All right. So the video starts out with just how she felt and how things were for her growing up. So let's start here.
Do you ever think to yourself, man, why is it so hard for me to just do the things I need to do and focus and remember things and manage my time and be organized and remember things and not get sidetracked? Ha! Yeah, me neither. When I was a kid, I was pretty much the picture perfect depiction of a good student.
And this is where sometimes for girls, especially for people that describe themselves as being a really good student, sometimes what they do is they've masked their symptoms well. So I know for me, what I did to manage my difficulty with remembering things, difficulty with inattention, I accommodated, I just naturally built in a lot of things that helped me get through that my teachers might not have even known about, that other people might not have fully understood. I am one, I need movement. So anytime you're watching me, so if I had to just sit here and sit still, that would make it difficult for me to think, difficult for me to proceed with the video. I do sometimes have fidgets and things that are off screen where I can fidget if I need to. Some people will call that stimming as well, but sometimes making a child just sit still, sometimes that can cause more difficulty with paying attention than if you just allow that child to have a movement break. If you just allow them to just kind of fidget around and then see, are they paying attention? Because sometimes we're trying to take a neurotypical way of doing things. So for some children, the way that they show they're paying attention is they're sitting down, giving you eye contact, and that's how they show that they are paying attention. For other students, they are going to be like all over, but if you ask them a question on the topic, they know exactly what you're talking about. They actually were paying attention. Now, there can be other times where they're having squirrel moments and know that they are really looking at the birds outside and they are not paying attention, but that's not every single case. And so that's where we have to figure out what works for one person isn't going to work for somebody else. And so here I'll provide some general tips, some general things that might work, but everything might not work for everyone. All right. All right. So let's keep going.
well organized, always turned in my work on time, got good grades. I even did my homework on Fridays instead of procrastinating until Sunday night. Sure, I didn't like studying and found it hard to focus during it, but who didn't? Seeing all those qualities put together, that doesn't sound like the brain of someone with any kind of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, does it? I was well behaved, didn't feel like I struggled much in school, and didn't cause any trouble.
And then, so I have the full link to this video down below because what happened is that then when she went off to college, and that's when everything kind of fell apart, and she was not able to function there. All right. So I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit. And like I said, I have the full link to this video. It's a really, really great video. So please check out the full video if you haven't already. Here we go. My camera's doing funny things. There we go. Okay. Hopefully, yes, it's back to where I want it. All right. So let me skip ahead.
Single binder I owned, and now I don't even know where I placed the 20 bucks I literally just had in my hand 3 minutes ago. I haven't even left the room. Genuinely, where could it fucking go? Despite feeling like I was downward spiraling for multiple years, I never suspected it could be something related to a genetic neurodevelopmental disorder. I just thought I wasn't trying hard enough and being lazy, or applying myself like I used to. Oh, the woes of turning into an adult, I suppose. Maybe the best years of your life truly are in high school. How upsetting. I didn't even enjoy those either. But then one day I got a text from my brother. I got diagnosed with ADHD. Huh. It was a pretty big surprise for me because growing up, he never really seemed to show any of the typical symptoms you associate with ADHD. You know, people would always describe ADHD to me as super hyper kids who would run around the room and scream and generally be a lot. That wasn't my brother. He was
And that's the more hyperactive impulsive. So there are three different types of ADHD. There is hyperactive impulsive. Those are the ones that are typically diagnosed between 5 and 6 years old. For girls, that can show up as talkativeness. So what I do is I fidget small. I don't fidget big. So I was never a little kid that was like running around in circles. Now, the one thing I did do looking back is I played softball or like some type of, I think it was softball or T-ball, and I was out in the outfield and I'd be out there doing cartwheels. I did not like T-ball at all. Like I was out and I was doing cartwheels. And so my mom ended up signing me up for gymnastics instead because I was just not doing anything. Um, your thoughts do the running? Can you tell me what you mean by that? Yes. And so the second type is predominantly inattentive type, and that is what Jaden is going to say that she was diagnosed with. So that's more the daydreamer, the individual that struggles with focus and attention as the primary symptoms, and they don't have the impulsive restlessness. They don't have those type of symptoms, and then you can have a combination of both. And ADHD is looked at as difficulty with executive function, or and so what executive dysfunction is it's difficulty with organization and regulation. And when that happens, what that ends up doing is it can cause the person to really struggle with remembering things. Where did we put things? um some people, I just heard recently that time blindness, that some people don't like that term, but for some people, the concept of time, when they're doing something they enjoy, it feels like it was 5 minutes, but it might have been an hour. And when they're doing something that they hate, it feels like an hour, but it was only 5 minutes. So, not really being able to trust how you feel time and needing those external reminders for time. With ADHD, there can also be this thing where it's a difficulty filtering out excess noise. So like right now my computer is making this is my older computer. They're it's probably overheating. I don't know. It's running a little loud. And but for a lot of people, they can just filter out that sound. For me, it's harder to filter out that sound. Sarah mentioned needing alarms, and so often with ADHD, if that can be an accommodation that somebody does in order to make it to things on time and to get to things on time. My clients with ADHD are either 20 minutes early or they're 10 to 15 minutes late. Like those are and I don't there's no judgment for them if they show up later. It's just they just don't have their full hour. And that's where people can talk about the ADHD tax with missing forgetting to pay things. So a lot of my bills are automated. So I'm laughing because for my business, the internet is incredibly important because I do a lot of sessions via telehealth. Well, I forgot to pay Cox. And the day it was due and they didn't have the money, they cut my internet immediately. And I had to figure it out. I worked it out. I was able to get it turned back on immediately because I had the money. I just forgot to pay it. So now that bill is set up on auto pay. So internet is auto pay. And yes, a lot of people feel like late fees are an ADHD tax. A lot of people feel that very strongly. With ADHD, there can be if people have the more impulsive type, there can be impulsive shopping. So me and Amazon, like I have to be so careful because I enjoy shopping. I also because often the ADHD brain is looking for dopamine. It's looking for something interesting. It's looking for something new. That's why a lot of your favorite creators have ADHD because creating is like fun and it's new and I never know exactly how it's going to go, and that is interesting to me. That's why I don't have I'm not an accountant because that just sounds like just ugh, like that would I wouldn't be able to get through that. And so you have to find healthy ways to find that dopamine because also people with ADHD can be at a higher risk for car accidents and for things like that too. All right. So, she realizes that her brother also who she didn't think had ADHD, was diagnosed with ADHD, and this is really common where one person in the family gets a diagnosis, and then, I've had it happen where a child is diagnosed, and then the parent is looking like, I have all of those symptoms. That's exactly how I was as a child." And then we realized that the parent had undiagnosed ADHD. Um so let's keep going. They will talk about not on here, but I've seen in the news them talking about an increase in people being diagnosed with ADHD after 2020. And what virtual did, so what telework did, is for some people, it made it more difficult for them to manage their day and manage their life because going to the office, they could be more or like it was easier for them to manage everything. But being at home, for some people, they struggled with like, I'm supposed to be doing this task, but now I really want to start a load of laundry, or because really I'm avoiding this task a little. And so that's where being able to figure out what works best for your brain. Mickey Adkins talks about that she likes working from or like telework and having more flexibility. I need to go to the office. So I am at the office today. This is my virtual background. When I am at home, it is harder for me to not do all the other things. And so coming into the office works better for me when I'm trying to be productive. There are things like um where you body doubling. So often you will find me in the chat with Emily D. Baker or Natalie Lawyer Chick, and I'll be like, "Don't mind me, I'm doing my notes," or Grizzly True Crime, because listening to something while I work, that helps me focus. And so with the kids and teens that I work with, when we're looking at 504 plans, when we're looking at accommodations for work, we're often talking because for an ADHD brain, dead silence, that is like horrific. So for a lot of people, that's how my brain works. Your brain might work different, but for me, I need outside, like I need music, or I often have shows or something playing that helps me focus. And when you're doing chores, so that's where people will talk about gamifying it, where it's like, okay, I'm going to listen to a podcast and see how much I can get done while I listen to this podcast. I also like that somebody pointed out that nobody's brain is good at focusing for longer than 90 minutes. So everyone needs a break, and everybody needs time to reset. But it's figuring out what you can do that'll help you get back into the other thing that you want to do. I've heard of some recommendations. So and sometimes my clients teach me the best things, where if they need to do something that they hate, like they have to finish an assignment for school and they absolutely hate it, sometimes making their bed can and then going to the assignment is easier than going from playing on their phone to going to the assignment, because they hate the thing so much. And so that's where figuring out what works best for you and not comparing yourself to people that whose brains work different. Let's keep going.
Was quiet and well behaved, like I was. But when he started explaining his symptoms, the gears started turning. Yeah, I've always struggled a lot with focusing in school and having things hold my attention when it's boring. But, like, I could hyperfixate on things I'm interested in and get really passionate about.
And that's where sometimes there can be a misunderstanding with ADHD, where they think it's a difficulty with attention with everything. No, it's difficulty with attention with the mundane, the boring, the repetitive, routines. It's things that are just blah. Like it's normally difficulty with those things. And there can be a hyper focus with things that you do enjoy, or when you do get that burst of I'm going to I'm going to get it done. And so figuring out how to just work with how your brain works.
About that stuff. Hearing him talk about his personal symptoms of ADHD made a lot of sense, and I felt very freshly educated on the topic. And you'd think that I would immediately start looking into getting a diagnosis.
Nope. So I am going to fast forward a little bit. Um, and it can be difficult to find an appointment, okay? So when you're looking for services, because first you have to find the person. Sometimes you have to wait. You have to remember to complete the paperwork. There are a lot of points of entry for getting the things done, and so it can be really really difficult to jump through all of those hoops. So often you're not just going to one doctor and saying, "I think I might have ADHD." Like sometimes you start with your primary care doctor, and then you have to find a psychologist for testing, and that person might have a 3 to 5 month wait list, and then you have to pay for the evaluation. And so there are a lot of hoops to jump through.
the ADHD list. I started seeing a psychologist, and he would ask the typical, "Do you have a hard time focusing?" And I'd go, "Yeah, like this one time yesterday." And then he writes something down as I continue rambling on this hyper specific example, way too long for a neurotypical person. I met with him for a few weeks, and then it came down to diagnosis day. The nerves, man. I was so ready for him to say I'm a normal person who needs to suck it up. But
No.
instead, he was like, "Okay, so yeah, you definitely exhibit symptoms of someone with the inattentive type of ADHD."
And that's where undiagnosed, untreated ADHD can increase anxiety, can increase depression. And this is a great question because is it normal to get like a run of good dopamine and then slump? I can be really good at like housework for a week or so, but then stop for a week and then cycle back around. And so I think so I'm not your doctor. I can't give you tips or answer your specific question, but in general, the thing that gives me dopamine one day and what helps me complete a task one week, I might have to switch it up and do something different. There are some people that externalize it where they say, and this was a tip that I got from Mickey's video earlier, is okay, so after I do my housework work for the day, I'm gonna get an iced coffee, or I'm going to, you know, go for a walk, or like there's something else that you're looking forward to where you do the thing you don't want to do first and then you do the thing that you want to do, and not waiting to want to do it, because like it's not, that's not going to happen. And then we'll get to the pathological demand avoidance, because that's a whole other thing, so we'll get to that in a moment.
And autism. Yippee! My struggles are justified.
And she doesn't go into the autism in this one. She just focused on the ADHD here.
I'm not crazy. Wait, what was that last part? He explained all the different ways ADHD affects me and the different areas I struggle with compared to others. He even gave me a 37-page document of his.
Okay, and so a very long report, and went back and things made sense, that there had been supports in place that really helped her function in the past. And then we'll get to the medication, because she had a lot of mixed feelings about taking medication, and there are different types. So I am not a medication doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist. I do know the general, so I have taken psychopharmacology classes. I do encourage clients to talk with their doctor about non-medication options and medication options, because there are people that can use, for some people. So like I use caffeine. That's the stimulant I use. Caffeine can have a slump. So midday towards, a certain period of time. Same thing with stimulant medications. There can be this rebound that kind of happens. And going outside, eating a protein bar, they're going just getting some fresh air for a moment. There are things that can definitely help. And I've also just accepted that my brain works this way. And I work for myself. I do the things that I want to do, and so I don't have to make myself fit into a neurotypical hole. Now, if I worked for an agency and I was operating like this. So when I worked for somebody else, it was a lot harder because they needed things to be done a certain way. Like I had to have all the things done by this day. Like there were these strict deadlines, and that was a little bit more difficult. Uh and so do you do you have ADHD? So you don't have to self-disclose if you don't want to. Uh, Coffee making people sleepy, th that can sometimes be a symptom of ADHD, because it actually calms the brain instead of waking it up, where it's stimulating so for some people, they're able to focus better because their brain might be working too fast, but not in a productive way. So there are some people where coffee making them sleepy is sometimes a signal to me that there might be an underactive prefrontal cortex. Because that's what so everybody else's brain doesn't work this fast. Like the neurotypicals, they're like coffee makes them like agitated, and like it makes them restless, and it's a whole thing. So that's sometimes one of my screening things, asking people how coffee affects them, because for people with ADHD it can actually be calming, and it can kind of calm the brain, and it can make them sleepy. So Not saying that anybody that does it, and for people that have ADHD and anxiety, sometimes stimulants can trigger it, and then also with some medical conditions. So one of my favorite psychologists over on TikTok, Leslie Saidi, she also has chronic medical where she can't be on a stimulant, and so she's on Vyvanse. She's on a non-stimulant, and it's incredibly helpful for her. She's able to do all the things. There was a shortage of medication, and during that shortage, she really struggled. Um, um, uh, I can definitely relate to that late diagnosis. I always suspected that I had it, and no lie, when I was in grad school, I would give myself tests, but you can't test yourself. Like you have to I would have to take a test where I didn't know like what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. So I think I was able to fool some of the test because I knew what the test was looking for. I had administered it. I knew like what you I don't know, like I knew the history of the test. So if I ever was tested, I would have to it would have to be a test that I have never given that I don't currently give. But yeah. Um but often uh so for some people, medication can be incredibly helpful. For other people, they choose other things. So there is neurofeedback, the brain training. There are ways because with the medication, that doesn't teach the skills because some people never like they don't have the skill of if there is a particular skill. So I love a good doom pile. Okay. I love a good doom pile from right here. I do things in clusters and I can find things better when it's clustered that way. My closet is never clean, my closet stays a huge doom pile. I keep my keys in a particular spot because I have locked myself out of the office. I have things set up where if I did ever lock myself out of the house, I know who to call or how to get back in. Because those are things, and that can be another ADHD tax of like locking yourself out and then having to pay for a locksmith and all those things. And so, um, I think I saw a question. Let me see if I can go back up to find it. Let me know if y'all have questions. I'm gonna look for it now. So let me know if you have questions. Okay, let's listen to this a little bit more.
Knowing I have it would be enough to get things into gear, and I didn't really need medication that badly. But the content creator in me also thought, well, if I'm gonna write a script about having ADHD, it would be nice to be able to talk about what it's like to be medicated, even just for a day. So I got prescribed good old classic instant release Adderall. Instant release means I don't have to take it every day. I can just take it when I need to get stuff done. It affects me immediately and then wears off after a few hours. There's also extended release, which is the kind you take every day and gives you a constant, steady stream of medication. It wasn't until I had the Adderall in my hands when I realized the idea of taking it for the first time made me nervous. Like, what is this thing gonna do to me? I have so many friends with ADHD.
And that's really common, and, for a person to be nervous about the impact that it will have. I know everybody figures out what works best for them. This is what, this person chose.
Honestly, a higher ratio than friends without it. That's how it goes in content creation. All these MFs have it. They were all telling me that it's awesome, how you'll take it and immediately feel like a god, and you can do anything, and it's incredible. And yeah, that sounds great, but also like, what the hell? What do you mean I take this little pill and suddenly all of my problems seemingly disappear and I
All
gain
of them.
superpowers? That's scary. That sounds like the thing
Alright. I'll keep
every
going.
adult in a 20-mile radius warned us about when we were kids. Am I gonna feel like a completely different person? I don't know if I'm ready to experience immortality. I put off taking Adderall for so long because I was irrationally scared of the tiny blue pill, but coincidentally, I really needed to get a script done. If I take too long to write a video script, then the team
Okay, I'm gonna skip ahead to when to when she takes it?
Like 20 minutes later, I felt it. All the nonstop thoughts going on in my brain went silent. I could think clearly and in like a line. My mind wasn't racing a mile a minute. I was able to sit behind my laptop and write. It was incredible. I was messaging all my friends about it the entire time. I can write my script and not get distracted. I don't have to take a mental break every 10 minutes. I can remember things. Kelsey sent me a message and I thought, I'll check that in a bit. And I remembered to check it in a bit and respond. When I opened a new tab to look something up, I didn't go down a random unrelated rabbit hole. I picked up my phone to check something and didn't impulsively scroll Twitter for an hour. I can write words so easily. How am I doing this? What do you mean I can feel like this whenever I want if I just eat the tiny blue pill? I refuse to believe regular people can function like this on a day-to-day basis. No way. It wouldn't be fair. You guys don't have loud, nonstop voices in your heads preventing you from doing normal things? Come on, just admit it. You can't pick something up and immediately keep remembering what you were supposed to be doing with it. You always.
And I felt like so many people could probably relate to that because I just and I love that different people find different things that work for them. Because also with some of the medications, if you're on it for a period of time, sometimes the doctor does have to shift it or switch it. And some people end up with like headaches or stomach aches, or they end up with issues with medication. So that's where they talk about all those things with their doctor. I love a good tab. So, and before recording this video, I had tabs open. I restarted my computer because sometimes that helps the stream flow better. I don't know what it does. I don't know. It might be my just turn it off, turn it back on mentality, but I found that it sometimes works because I rarely turn my computer, shut it all the way down. And you're supposed to, I guess. I don't. Not a computer person, and so with this, being able to completely figure out how to shut things down, and but I ended up shutting down a tab that I needed before I press save. So I had a whole description written that was so much better than the one that's down below, and that's why I was a little late getting on because I accidentally closed the tab.
Forget and feel crazy. Come on. Come on. I was so suspicious that on Adderall, either nothing would happen and I just wouldn't feel anything, or I would feel like I'm a totally different person experiencing some higher than life manic episode.
And that's where if somebody does take a medication and they feel like a completely different meaning they do have increased agitation, or if they have any negative side effects, that's where talking with their doctor as soon as possible, that's really important. The short acting ones, the good thing is they're in and out the system within 24 hours. I have had some clients with histories of trauma, because trauma in children, excuse me, can look like ADHD, but it's actually a overactive amygdala. It's actually a trauma response, and it's not, or we have to get the trauma under control before we can see if there is ADHD there or not. And so being able to um kind of distinguish between the two. And that's where evaluation can be really helpful, specifically with somebody that specializes in looking at the difference. And I warn people, so my leaning, if somebody hasn't had treatment for the past trauma and they're coming for an evaluation, I'm going to say, let's see what happens with treating the trauma first and then seeing what's there. If somebody has had a whole bunch of treatment, then that's different. Or if there's anxiety, because sometimes difficulty concentrating can fall under a lot of different conditions. So difficulty concentrating can be depression. Depression can get so bad where you can't get out of bed, you can't brush your teeth, you can't, you have the depression room, and that's different from the what happens with ADHD. And so that's where getting an evaluation, talking with a professional, that can be helpful. All right, let's keep going.
But no, I just felt like myself, but with my shit together. And that's the part I couldn't believe. After 2 months of war, I finally was able to plant myself down and write my damn script. You wanna know what script I wrote while experiencing Adderall for the first time? This one. I was struggling to write a script about ADHD, and the thing that finally pulled it out of me was Adderall. You gotta admit that's funny. Yeah, it
It really is. And so I really do encourage you to check out the rest of that video. Um So let's talk about demand avoidance, pathological demand avoidance. It can be seen with autism. I've also heard of um, and it's also just a natural human trait to avoid things that we don't want to do. And that sometimes we just don't want to do the things, but people with pathological demand avoidance, it's this inability to do something when you're told to do it. So when you're told to do something, that just the fact that there's a demand and making it more difficult to do the things. So I don't love being told what to do. I wouldn't necessarily say that mine goes as far as like pathological demand avoidance. That could have been, but yes. So there is and they do talk about autistic demand avoidance. This is on pdasociety.org, and I have this link down in the description. Um, but demand avoidance in PDA, what that is many everyday demands are avoided simply because they are demands. Some people explain that it's the expectation from someone or even yourself, which leads to a feeling of lack of control. Then anxiety increases and panic sets in. And in addition, there can be an irrational quality to the avoidance. For instance, a seemingly dramatic reaction to a tiny request or a feeling of hunger, inexplicably stopping someone from being able to eat. The avoidance can vary depending on the individual's capacity for demands at the time, their level of anxiety. And so it can be externalized where it comes from other people, or it can be internalized. And there really are just there's a lot of great information here on this site about it. I always like to talk about the solutions of what approaches can help. And so I think being aware of that, okay, this is the anxiety, this is what's going on. Sometimes that awareness can help with these situations. For me, I like it when my alarm clock wakes me up versus if a person wakes me up. A person waking me up puts me in a mood. It's just a thing. I also want to point out the fact PDA is not an official diagnosis in the DSM-5. It is something I believe in like the UK and other places, but yes. Um, I love this question. Does anyone also have an internal dialogue? Um, uh, so I moderate. So I have one on the inside, and sometimes it's external. It's like when I'm at the grocery store, it comes out loud. But I don't know if anybody else does. Does that relate to feeling driven, maybe to do things you're told not to do? So it's not wanting to do the things that you're being told to do. I hope that clarifies things. All right. All right. And so they go into it. Um and there are where you end up figuring out um what works for the individual. So for me, if I'm already cleaning dishes, for somebody to say, "Don't forget to put away the dishes," like that's just gonna like it's like I was already doing the thing. So being told to do what you're already doing can sometimes create an increase in agitation. Um, but I wanted to share that resource because it really is a thing. Let me go back to here. Let's center back. tomorrow, okay? So for all my court people, because I did get a comment that I starred. It's cool that y'all were talking. Y'all were in Runkle's chat. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, wait a minute. I started the wrong one. Peanut butter, you mentioned talking about the prosecutor, the special prosecutor in the Baldwin case. I want to say that's what you were talking about. That people wanted to know my perspective. And why do people do the things that they do? So should center my camera. It's not going to do it. Did it do it? It did it. All right. So why do people do the things that they do? In my personal opinion, the special prosecutor in the Baldwin case that keeps coming back and is trying to fight this losing battle, I don't know if it's they just won't admit that they did something wrong. I don't know. I don't know. It's a really hard one. I don't know. I'd get paid a lot more if I could explain exactly why that was a thing, but pride. Yeah, equality. So I don't know what's going on with that particular individual. I am going to talk about the Lori Shraver. I think they're doing closing arguments right now or very soon. And so I am going to talk about her daughter's testimony. I don't think I'm going to play it. Her daughter is 15 going on 16 years old, and it is a messy, messy case. And I will be talking about that one tomorrow, and also Lori's testimony because she decided to testify. So we will definitely talk about that tomorrow. We have our members only stream tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. Um, and then you asked, does anyone have severely deficient autobiographical memory? Um, so I'm bad with names. That's what I have. I am horrible with names. I'm also horrible sometimes losing my train of thought in the middle of it. It's called working memory. So as I'm talking, so that happened at least once today where like my train almost fell off the track. It didn't completely go because I was able to find it. But sometimes if I see a question, sometimes I completely fall off the track and I don't know where it went. But some people do have trouble remembering like their past or things that happened. But that's where meeting with a neurologist or talking with a neuropsychologist can really be helpful. Somebody asked, does anybody have OCD along with ADHD? Um, and Sarah, thank you for helping me find my trains when they start to go off track. And Sarah, bring your questions about Pam Hupp tomorrow because we will talk about it on the members only stream. And so, uh, ah, you have both. Cool. All right. All right. That's all I have for today. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.